Hi Joe, how are you?
Hey Matthew, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, good mate, good. I gotta say, I was loved the Attack the Block very much so.
Man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it way back in March when you first debuted it at the South by Southwest Festival, and it's really cool. We finally get to see it down here in Australia.
Taking its time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Well, that's my first question for you. Could you imagine still plugging this film 8 months after it had its premiere?
Well, I think that's probably a positive thing. I mean, I've been promoting the film all year. I've been to, Switzerland and Germany and LA, and I've been all over the world with it, and that's pretty cool for me, considering it could have just vanished.
Yep.
The first film, and it was risky in some ways. The way we did it was a bit risky, and the characters are a tiny bit edgy, and for it to have done so well and still be playing around the world is very rewarding and exciting.
Well, let's go back a bit. What was the when did you have the initial idea to make this movie?
Oh, quite a few years ago, really. And as you know, the film's about this gang of kind of street kids who have to defend their housing block from an alien invasion. And the original germ of the idea came when I was robbed by a gang of quite young street kids in the neighborhood here where I live and where I grew up, and when we set the film. And I just thought it would be an interesting idea, like an interesting challenge to try and take this bunch of, fairly unsympathetic kids and see whether you could bring out the hero in them by having them encounter this alien invasion scenario.
Yep.
The film starts with these kids up to no good. You're allowed to dislike them. For the first half of the movie, you can be enjoying them being chased and bitten by these aliens. But then, hopefully, as the story proceeds, you start to understand them a bit more, and the film's exploring them as characters as well as being a kind of crazy action adventure alien chase movie.
Yeah. Well, the environment and the language of your characters in a setting, it feels very authentic. What kind of research did you undertake to get that look and that tone right?
We did a lot of research. I figured out the story in treatment form, across about 7 or 8 pages, and then before I wrote the script, I went out into the community and talked to hundreds of young people, from areas like that in youth groups, so I did months and months of research to try and nail the way they spoke and the slang they used, and the things that would be important to them. And I asked them all sorts of questions like, who would you defend in a situation like that? Who would you not mind if they were eaten? And how would you protect yourself? And who would be at home to support you? And we did lots and lots of research, because for me it was very important that, to balance the kind of sci-fi craziness of the alien plot, we also had a fairly realistic, grounded group of characters and environment to set it in.
There have been instances in the Australian film industry where Australian films had to be redubbed to play for, say, an American audience,
Right.
because they couldn't understand our accents. Did you have you ever have to face that obstacle when needing to market your film to, say, an American audience or another audience, in regards to how your characters speak in this film?
No, not really. There was when we first showed it at South by Southwest much earlier this year. There was one journalist who wrote, "Oh, this could need subtitles," and then it sort of became a bit of a story. But it's never happened, and audiences in America really seem to understand it. It's a pretty straightforward scenario,
Yeah.
so it's not complicated to figure out what's happening. And then we took great care to make the slang pretty simple. They use the same 10 or 11 phrases over and over again.
Yeah. Like allow it and yeah.
Sorry?
Allow it is my favourite, I think.
Yeah, and those are real slang terms that are really used, and for me that's a cool thing. That's one of the fun things about science fiction, that you come away from a good science fiction or fantasy movie knowing some new little cool terms, whether it's Quidditch or Hoth or Bespin or, all of those made-up words that science fiction fans understand but nobody else does,
Yeah.
Attack the Block will give you a whole new little handful of those terms, hopefully.
I love the look of your alien invaders. They're very simplistic, but they're very menacing. Where did the idea come from to create them in that way?
Well, I don't want to give too much away about them for people who haven't seen the film yet, but as you say, hopefully they are quite unique and they're unlike anything you've seen for a while. You know, they connect more with the movies I loved when I was growing up, like E.T. and Gremlins and Critters. So there's more of a practical aspect to them than maybe is usually the case in big-budget Hollywood movies. And, you know, if I tell you what inspired them, it'll make them not so scary and it'll give them away.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to keep that a secret, but suffice to say that you know, in a world where CGI creatures are pretty samey, you know, for me, the kind of the creature in Super 8 and the creatures in Battle LA, you know, kind of look the same.
Mm.
And so we went out of our way to make a very different kind of creature that's a bit more old school, but is there. You know, our creature, when it attacks the kids, it's attacking them for real. And when it smashes through a window, it's really smashing through a window. So, yeah, that's all I would say.
Not many British films tackle this type of material. Do you foresee a swing in direction where filmmakers such as yourself that are influenced by like American genre movies are going to create their own genre films within your industry?
Well, there is a bit of a resurgence of that kind of thing in the UK. Like, I'm thinking of Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead, that really was the beginning of a kind of revival of genre movies in the UK. I'm thinking of Neil Marshall's film The Descent.
Yep.
Of Duncan Jones's Moon, of Gareth Edwards' Monsters. So in the last, you know, few years, there has been a sort of a bit of a sea change away from, you know, the kind of social realism and movies about royalty that get made quite easily over here, towards something a bit more imaginative and you know, out there, and really led by a lot of great television. You know, whether it's the Doctor Who becoming a huge success again, or shows like Misfits. You know, there is a kind of a bit of a revival, I think, of sci-fi in the UK, and you know, I love it. It's the kind of thing I loved, and really, as a child over here in the UK, I was watching, you know, great, you know, 70s and 80s genre films. So maybe it's a generation influenced by that great 80s cinema that are trying to bring it back.
What I really loved about the film is that I feel it has a potential to be a great kind of franchise. Can we see maybe an American version, Attack the Block in Compton, or maybe an Australian movie of Attack the Block in Redfern? Can you foresee anything like that in the future?
That would be cool. Yeah, I'd like to see the characters from Animal Kingdom or Snowtown.
Yeah.
Deal with an alien invasion.
Yeah. Well, you know, the possibilities are vast, aren't they?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I wouldn't be averse to it. It doesn't happen that often, does it? I know, like Paranormal Activity has started to spin off movies like that, hasn't it? I know there's a Tokyo version of Paranormal Activity and stuff.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, we've been approached by a couple of studios, like investigating the possibility of a remake, and we definitely spend a lot of time thinking about the sequel, even though there's nothing on the cards yet. But you know, maybe you know, Attack the Block it's quite a punchy film. It's just under 90 minutes long, so hopefully it leaves you wanting more rather than leaving you exhausted and desperate to go home like some of these big 3-hour Hollywood movies do. So hopefully that's indicating that people want more after it ends, which is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Another film that you contributed to is coming out in Australia soon as well, and that's the Tintin movie.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Well, that was pretty amazing. I got that gig through my friend Edgar Wright, who made Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and Scott Pilgrim and stuff. And yeah, he and I worked with Stephen Moffat and Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson to write Tintin, The Adventures of Tintin, which I think is due out in Australia Christmas time, right?
Day after, that's right.
Yeah, and yeah, so that was amazing. You know, though Spielberg and Jackson are both big heroes of mine, and I'm a massive fan of Tintin and Hergé's work, and have been since I was a little kid. So that was a dream come true, really. You know, it was hard work. It's a big production, and obviously working with people like that, you wanna you know, do your best. But it was an amazing opportunity, and the film is pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big collaboration between lots of people who are big fans of Hergé and the character, and yeah, so it's pretty exciting, and I hope you guys enjoy it when it comes out.
Speaking of Edgar Wright, you're also writing the screenplay for his Ant-Man movie. How's that coming along?
It's good. You know, we've been working on that for a while now. We delivered a draft earlier in the year, and that's really in the hands of Edgar and Marvel as to if and when they'll make it. But we're pretty excited by our draft. He's a pretty cool character. You know, he's not a hugely famous Marvel character, but in a way that's kind of cool because people don't have too many preconceptions or expectations, and you know, we feel that in quite a crowded market, he is a very unique and a very different kind of comic book hero, and yeah, so it would be great if Ant-Man you know, got made at some point. Yeah, we think we've written a pretty cool script.